Good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to see you all here. I have a new song to sing to teach you all, or to teach some of you. The theme for this week, oh my gosh. This theme for this morning is Paolo is tired. The theme for this month is truth, repair, and power. Thank you. The song that we'll be singing this month to accompany it is called Shall We Gather at the River. It's an old American hymn, and I'd love to sing it with you right now. It goes, Shall we gather at the river where bright angels' feet have trod? Can we get the next slide, Olu? There we go. So it goes, shall we gather at the river where bright angels' feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Great, that's the song. We'll sing the first verse and then a second verse, and then we'll come back to it. And hopefully, we're in the right key. Let's do it here instead. Shall we gather at the river where bright angels' feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing saints by the river that flows by the throne of God.
Good morning, everyone. And welcome to First Universalist Church. My name is Jen Crow, and I use she and her pronouns, and it is a privilege to serve as your senior minister here. It's also a joy and privilege to get to lead worship today with Reverend Ashley, with Paolo, with our worship associates, Nan Potter and Gary Hoover, with Maria Heath offering a testimonial, with our pickup choir coming soon in the service. So good, so good. We're grateful to John and Olu for helping us stay connected with tech, and to all the artists and ushers and greeters and tenders of this space. Together, we make this time of connection and care and inspiration possible. I'm so glad that each and every one of you is here this morning in person and joining us online too. It's good to be together. Thanks for taking a risk on connection and care and community. Thank you for taking a risk on love whenever we gather together. And welcome to this community that we create together. If you're new, we're so glad that you're here. Welcome. It's good to be with you here. If you've been here gazillions of times, welcome back. It is so good to be with you here. It takes all of us here as we lean into a universalist understanding of faith that names each and every person as whole and holy and worthy, welcome and wanted, all of us with room to grow. It is in this community of love and hope that we commit to practicing beloved community that is grounded in and springs from a love that is so inclusive and irresistible and expansive that it cannot help but transform us individually and collectively, creating a world of mutual thriving here and now. Now, as Paolo told us this morning, we begin into our March worship theme of truth and power and repair, all spiritual practices and concepts that sustain our resilience in these days and beyond. Now, as we do each month now, I want to introduce us to a spiritual practice that you can pick up or not, depending on how it fits for you. You can alter it or not, depending on how it fits for you. But it's an invitation in to a shared way of being and of trying things out this month. So here we are in the midst of, I'm so sick of this word, unprecedented times. So here we are in the midst of so much challenge, right? And I want to encourage us not to be waiting for perfect conditions to be growing our spirits, but instead to find ways in the midst of it all, to continue to find ways to repair, restore, heal, find joy right in the middle of it all. So some of you might remember that I had a friend and a colleague who did something super annoying to me when I was in the midst of a difficult time. So this was about 15 years ago, and my mom was dying. She had a quick diagnosis of terminal cancer, and we had a newborn at the time. And I was also serving as the associate minister in our congregation in Rochester, New York, and the senior ministers just happened to be on sabbatical at the time. So I found myself back and forth to Maryland to care for my mom during this challenging time and bringing my newborn with me as well. And this colleague of mine would text me in the morning whenever I was traveling down to be with my mom and my family. And he would say, "I want you to be on the lookout for grace today." I was like, "Ugh, you kidding me?" And he defined grace, and it was helpful, as any unexpected gift, anything that felt like connection, hope, possibility, gift, right? Joy in the middle of all of this. And then just as annoyingly, he would text me at the end of the day and ask me to report in on my moments of grace. So this is something that I have continued. I keep an eye out for grace. I keep an eye out for joy, connection, hope. And what I've been finding over the last couple of weeks in particular is that I think I had been waiting for a different time in order to find some hope, joy, connection, grace. I've been waiting for things to be better, and it wasn't working for me. And so what I have started doing is in the morning when I'm looking at my day and what's ahead, I try to anticipate when some of those moments of grace might be. Moments of connection, care, joy. right? So when I'm looking through the day, I might see, oh, I've got like a 15-minute break here. I'm going to go walk around the block and look for tree buds. Or I've got a little bit of time while I'm walking the dog, I'm going to call a friend. Whatever it is for you that might bring some restoration, repair, joy right in the middle of it. That's what I'm inviting you into. To notice, to maybe anticipate, to create those moments in the here and now. Today, this week, this month. That's the challenge. Yeah? Oh, you can be annoyed. Yes, you can. You can find this spiritual practice super annoying. I threaten to kick my friend in the shins like daily when I receive these text messages. So feel free. It's okay. I can take it. So friends, as we take a moment now to extend and expand this beloved community, to make it real, as you take a moment to turn and greet your neighbors, sharing your name, maybe your pronouns, I invite you to share also where you have experienced or where you anticipate experiencing one of those moments of connection, joy, repair in these days. Got it? All right, let's go seek each other out. No one outside the circle. All right. I invite you to come on back. Come on back to the big group. Keep these questions with you. I hope you'll keep asking them of yourself and others throughout this month. I'm going to keep asking you about it. But come on back. I love the energy moving in this space. All right, I'm going to invite us to join together in our practice that helps us to settle our bodies. It's available to us anytime, wherever we are. This is our shared practice of 3 intentional breaths, a way to be connected to each other across time and space wherever we find ourselves, a way to resettle ourselves even when things are challenging. Let's do this together. 3 intentional breaths. From this place of connection and calm, we remember and recommit to the promises that keep us together. I invite you to join with me in saying the words for our chalice lighting now, if you'd like. Love is the spirit of the church, and service is its law. This is our very covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love. Each Sunday, we engage in spiritual practices that bring our faith alive in the world. We do this in so many different settings. Sometimes we do it all together, like this. We also make spaces that are just right for the different communities among us. We're all growing in our spiritual lives, even when we're in different spaces or different groups. And now is the time when our children and youth and their teachers and guides begin to make their way into the spaces made ready just for them. They take the light of the chalice with them and follow the flags and the light and make their way into their classrooms. Spaces of consistency and care and calm are so important for all of us, and especially for our children and youth. We have a few remaining openings to help care for our community of children and youth. We have openings at the 9 a.m. service for our kindergarten and first grade class and for our second and third grade class, and at 11 o'clock for the third to fifth grade class. Only 3 spots remain. This is your opportunity. You don't have to be there every week, but you do have to be a loving and caring presence. And our children and youth are depending on us to make those spaces. If you're able to show up and help create community in this way, please contact me or Harut after the service.
Good morning, beloveds. My name is Ashley. I'm one of your ministers, and I use she, her pronouns. Now we get to settle in a bit more deeply. Let our spirits arrive here with our bodies in this space. I got to spend a part of this week with some beloveds who I have known for about 10 years in a fellowship program for, quote, emerging leaders. We are apparently no longer emerging. This was our last gathering. But it was a time when I got to spend good meditative time with my own body and in the flow of each other's stories. And I want to invite you into some learning I had. We remembered that bodies are made of at least 60% water. That we are rivers of sorts. We can stand by the edge of the water with our own bodies. And let that just be. So often with meditation and prayer, we're taught to be still, but our bodies are always flowing and moving. So as we gather here by the edge of our own bodies and the fluid movement within them, let yourself feel that movement. Put your hand on your chest or your belly or both, if that feels safe to you. Feel what is emerging, even if you are technically too old to be emergent. I don't think that's possible. We are always holding possibility for emergence, for fluidity and change, for the softness and power that water holds. And into that collective softness and flow and power, we have the opportunity to share together what rests in our beings. What would be just a bit more joyful if we held it together, or a bit lighter if we didn't have to hold it alone? This is what we call prayer in this community. I invite you now to hold gently in yourself all that needs care and tending, all in this community and our wider world that needs solidarity and fierce gentleness. You are welcome to share aloud or in the chat, and we will respond as is our custom. You are not alone. We are holding it together. The circle is open now. Oh, unique. Unique, we are praying with you in gratitude and ache that your sister left the bar in Austin where there was a shooting 20 minutes before it happened. In the space of unspeakable ache, may you remember, you are not alone. We are holding it together.
Two of my friends went to a dance camp in Israel, and now the dance camp has been canceled. They are moving out with friends.
Lisa, for your friends in Israel, for those in safe houses, for those looking out for the bombs falling, may they know you are not alone. We are holding it together. For children in mental health crisis, you are not alone. We are holding it together. For your nephew, Denise, who died of an overdose. May all who loved him and knew him know you are not alone. We are holding it together.
Should be on a plane right now. All of Minneapolis after being released in San Antonio.
For Guillermo, who should be on a plane right now after being released in San Antonio. You are not alone. We are holding it together. We are praying with Marie J. online for my brother who had a heart attack yesterday morning, had a stent put in, and is recovering in the hospital now. Marie, may you and your brother know you are not alone. We are holding it together.
For my friend who lost touch with her family in Iran.
For your friend who lost touch with her family in Iran a month ago. You are not alone. We are holding it together. For the grip of imperialism in all its forms to loosen, may we be in solidarity with that loosening in ways we cannot yet imagine. And may we remember that in that work, we too are not alone. We are holding it together. For Melissa, who writes, For my wife who is living with alcoholism and trying her best each day. May you both know you are not alone. We are holding it together.
We adopted a border collie named Lucky. He's 5 years old, and oh my God, does he have energy? So I'm preparing another toy. We think he might have been abandoned when his family was deported or self-deported. But he's a good buddy for our Shine Daddy Golden Retriever, and we love him so.
Sherry, we are praying for you and all in the path of Lucky. May you remember joyfully that you are not alone. We are holding it together. We are praying with Jill Ferris, whose mom died last Thursday, peacefully and surrounded by her children. We are praying with Jill and Mike, Beatrice and Sylvia, that they may each know they are not alone, and we are holding it together. For all that is unnamed, unspoken, held in our nervous systems as fight or flight or flee or fawn, that has not yet found words, but needs holding in our collective flow and soft power. May we remind ourselves and each other now, you are not alone. We are holding it together. Let us sing Spirit of Life. Amen, Wendell. Now is the time when we make this holding of each other material, when we liberate our resources for the good of our collective being. First, a couple announcements. I get to cheer you on. We have passed the halfway mark in our pledge campaign. We are at over 800,000 committed. Yes. I think this is pretty record-breaking speed for us. Y'all like a big finish and a stressful end of the campaign, and we are progressing beautifully towards our goal of 1.5 million. And I tell you what, speaking of anticipated grace, your stewardship team is offering you all an extension to reach our goal. March 14th is the new deadline, but you should feel free, really free, liberated even, to commit now. Olu, would you put the QR code up, please? This is where you can find the giving forms, and I invite you to be inspired now by the one, the only, Maria Heath.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Maria, I use she and her pronouns, and I'm tasked with talking to you about why to pledge today. I know so many other people have already said such amazing things, so I had to do something a little bit different today. So let's do this. Story time. There once was a woman named Abigail Cram Parker. She lived in rural Illinois in the 1800s and was married to a man named Benjamin Franklin Parker, who moved there from Vermont in the 1830s. You may recognize the name Parker, as Benjamin Franklin Parker was a relative of the abolitionist and transcendentalist Universalist minister Theodore Parker of Massachusetts. Abigail was also a Universalist, likely from her father's side, though being a Universalist in the rural Midwest in the 1800s was difficult, since the idea of universal salvation was a bit weird, and there were no Universalist churches in the area. But in 1899, Abigail hosted a gathering in her house. Her husband, Ben Franklin, had passed at this point, of 14 people who voted to establish the first Universalist Church of Stockton, Illinois. By the next year, a church building was built and fully paid off in downtown Stockton. Skipping ahead a bit, one of Abigail's sons, Abraham Lincoln Parker, weren't they great at names? Had a daughter named Florence who grew up in the church and was married to her husband Leland in the Universalist Church by a female minister in 1923. Reverend Lucy Markley was the first woman in the region to be ordained, showing how the Universalist Church was already at the forefront of women's rights at the time. Florence Parker, who became Florence Pierce, had several children, one of whom was my grandpa Max. He also grew up in the church, as did my mother, and eventually me. Yes, I'm indulging in some personal family history here, not to brag too much about my long UU pedigree, but to remind us that one of the big benefits of churches is that they are institutions that last through generations and support communities across literal centuries. You may have an equally long pedigree of UU ancestors, or you may have just started coming here last month. But either way, you are part of an institution that has been around since before you were born and will, if we continue to support it, long outlive you. Now, I can't claim to know what inspired my great-great-great-grandmother Abigail to help found a Universalist church in her town, or what the church meant to her. But I do know what the church means to me and others today. To make sure I got all these details correct today, I called up an older woman from the Stockton church who's also a descendant of Abigail and Benjamin Parker, who knew more about that history. And I asked her what church meant to her. And she told me she doesn't know how she could have lived in a small conservative town like Stockton if she hadn't had the church community that she did, teaching her that every person has worth and giving us the freedom to be who we're supposed to be in spite of those that wish to control us. And I feel exactly the same about my time in UU religious education. I developed some of my most important moral values there and made some of my closest friends. That's why I searched out another UU church here in the Twin Cities as an adult, and why I volunteer with the youth here. Investing both my time and my money here at First U allows me to share my resources and knowledge with the next generation who is growing up in this church, and with all of you who will each have an impact on this church's legacy. 100 years from now, what amazing thing might this church have grown into? We are not at the end point or culmination of centuries of history leading up to this moment. We are one stop in a long arc of progress and growth and love. As Theodore Parker himself said in his famous 1853 sermon, "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe, The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. This was over 170 years ago that he said this. The arc of the moral universe is long, and where will it take us? I see a future where we have even more sanctuary spaces and affordable housing for those to support our vulnerable neighbors. I see a community garden where the intersection of our environmental justice and food security goals are met. I see outreach that allows even more people to learn about us and how we could be a safe and meaningful religious space for them if they only knew we existed. I see community dinners and potlucks so often that eating and socializing in community becomes the default that it was always supposed to be for humankind. And what if we could afford to buy that food from local sources and help build a network of sustainable, environmentally friendly food economies? What if we could host even bigger youth cons and pay for people to come here from all over the Midwest? What if we could hire cooks and counselors and legal advocates and community organizers and event planners? Wouldn't that be neat? Wouldn't that serve our goal of bending towards justice? I want this church to continue long after I'm gone. I want this church to still be a sanctuary of love and a front line for justice 100, 200 years from now in a time I can't even imagine. So I donate my time volunteering in the religious education program, and I hear you can do so too. And I donate my money, just like my mother does, to our church back in Stockton, and my grandfather and his mother. My role is not to help found a church like my great-great-great-grandmother did, but it is to support one so that we can continue to thrive. This pledge season, we've been asked to imagine what we could do with double the money. And I challenge you to also envision double the impact of a century's worth of future progress and the difference it could make for our great-great-great-grandchildren, biological or not, and their ability to continue the work that we're doing here today. So thank you, Grandma Abigail, for your foresight. And thank you all for the many ways that you support this church and its future.
Amen. Thank you, Maria. We have a twofer today, as is our custom these days. We get to support as a community an organization that was co-founded by our own Lena Gardner, Neighbors Helping Neighbors. And today, March 1st, the rent is due. So I invite you to give boldly to Neighbors Helping Neighbors, which connects community members across Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the Twin Cities Metro who need support with caring volunteers ready to help with rides, groceries, and more, including rent. This is an organization that came to life at the request of Latinx organizers in early December and continues to be busy and in much need today. May we give boldly. May we receive when we need to receive care and resources. If this is a week when you need to practice the often harder task of asking for support, I invite you to ask any of the staff for connection to our Minister's Emergency Fund. And I invite you to grow now. Let us receive our morning offering.
Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Freedom is coming. Oh yes, I know.
Hi, my name is Nan Potter, and I use the pronouns she and her. I am going to be reading a poem by Adrienne Rich called Power. Living in the earth deposits of our history, today, a backhoe divulged out of a crumbling flank of earth. One bottle, amber, perfect. 100-year-old cure for a fever or for melancholy. A tonic for living on this earth in the winters of our climate. Today, I was reading about Marie Curie. She must have known that she suffered from radiation sickness. Her body, bombarded by years from the elements that she was working with, that she had purified. It seems she denied to the end the source of the cataracts of her eyes and the cracked and suppurated skin of her fingertips, till she could no longer hold a test tube or a pencil. She died a famous woman, denying her wounds, denying her wounds came from the same source as her power.
My name is Gary Hoover. I use he, him pronouns. And today I'm going to read a poem from Andrea Gibson entitled How the Worst Day of My Life Became the Best. But first I'll read a remark reflecting on it by Eckhart Tolle. When you are trapped in a nightmare, your motivation to awaken will be so much greater than that of someone caught up in a relatively pleasant dream. And now, how the worst day of my life became the best, by Andrea Gibson. When I realized the storm was inevitable, I made it my medicine. Took 2 snowflakes on the tongue in the morning, 2 snowflakes on the tongue by noon. There were no side effects, only sound effects. Reverb added to my lifespan an echo that asked, "What part of your life's record is skipping? What wound is on repeat? Have you done everything you can to break out of that groove?" By nighttime, I was intimate with the difference between tying my laces and tuning the string section of my shoes. I made a symphony of walking away from everything that did not want my life to sing. I felt a love for myself so consistent that metronomes tried to copyright my heartbeat. I finally understood I am the conductor of my own life and will be even after I die. I, like the trees, will decide what I become. Oh, a porch swing, a church pew, an envelope that must be licked to be closed. Kinky choice. But I didn't close. I opened and opened until I could imagine that the pain was the sensation of my spirit not breaking. That my mind was a parachute that could always open in time. That I could wear my heart on my sleeve and never grow out of that shirt. That every falling leaf is a tiny kite with a string too small to see, held by the part of me in charge of making beauty out of grief.
Y'all, I'm going to boil it down into a question and an answer for where we're heading today. Shall we gather at the river? Yes, that is the answer. We are tenders of the river. This is where we are headed today. Now, I imagine some of you might feel a little surprised that we chose Shall We Gather at the River as the song for the month. It has some theology that maybe on first glance might feel unfamiliar or not quite what you're used to. The river that flows by the throne of God, for instance. But I invite you to expand those definitions a bit. Will we gather at a river that is life-giving? Will we gather with the saints, with the ancestors? Will we live in a world, we pray, we hope, we act, that will quiver with beauty and peace? That is where we are headed. That is where we are headed, and that's where I hope we will find glimpses in our lives, even in this moment. So travel with me again back to those 1800s where Maria took us just a little bit ago. Back to a time when the idea of universal salvation and universalism was an absolutely radical idea. A love that included everyone. A God so big that no one was left out of the circle. A God that ensured that in the end we would see each other in heaven, every one of us. This was an absolutely radical idea in a time when religion was based in fear and shame, and dare I say, it is a radical idea still. This is the time that this hymn came about. It was 1864 when Reverend Robert Lowry wrote the hymn, Shall We Gather at the River? It was just 5 years after this congregation had been formed in 1859. And this history book, written in 1876, tells the story of the hymn. And it goes like this. On a hot summer day in 1864, a pastor was seated in his parlor in Brooklyn, New York. It was a time when a typhoid epidemic was sweeping through the city and draping many persons and dwellings in mourning. All around, friends and acquaintances were passing away to the spirit land in large numbers. The question began to arise in the heart with unusual emphasis. Shall we meet again? We are parting at the river of death. Shall we meet at the river of life? For Reverend Lowry, I imagine this question was grounded primarily in the idea of an afterlife. Who will I see there in heaven? Will we meet together there at that river? Or would it be who we will see at the river of fire in hell? Who would be at which river might be what he was imagining for the afterlife. But I imagine, too, he wondered about it in the very present moment, too. At the end of the day he was living in, where an epidemic was raging, who would he gather with at the end of the day? Who would still be alive at the end of the day? The end of the week, the end of the epidemic. Would we ever see each other again? I imagine him wondering. Would we gather by the river of life, or would we be gathering by the river of death? Those are the questions I imagine beating in his heart in those days. And though our religious beliefs and the times might be different right now, I think those questions still remain in us. Will we ever gather at the river, the crystal pure river? Will we gather at the river of life? Who will be included there at the gathering at the river? Will we know the beauty of it? Will we know the melody of peace? Will we know it in our lifetime? Who will be with us at the river? These questions are still at the heart of our Universalist faith. I think about it because it was just a couple of weeks ago I was meeting with a member of our sanctuary and resistance team, a member of the church who's been deep in accompaniment work with folks who are at risk of deportation for the last 10 years. And we were going over some practical details of what needed to be taken care of in the weeks ahead as this team member got ready to go away on a trip. We covered what accompaniment needs there would be, groceries, laundry, rent, food, all of those things. And after we'd gotten through the whole checklist, we settled into the real question that was at the heart of things. Will I ever see these people again? I'm going away for a couple of weeks in the midst of a time of unbelievable cruelty. Will I ever see these people that I have come to love again? Will we gather at the river? We sat with the question, and this church member said to me they'd been praying on it, meditating on it, and they had decided that yes, they would see these people again. They knew it. They knew it in their heart. It was a statement of faith they were making. Faith, which means a hope in something we cannot see. Faith, which tells us that we have a conviction, not only a belief, but a will and actions to make it happen. Faith. Loyalty to a promise of gathering at the river of life. Faith. I think it's so important to hold that faith, knowing the reality of the truth. Different truths for each of us, yes, but able to hold the complexity of it all, the both and, because it is from the truth that our power springs. Andrea Gibson, who we heard from earlier, writer of that poem, How the Worst Day of My Life Became the Best, a title I am still skeptical of, even though I trust their writing and their being. An activist, author, member of the LGBT+ community, really grounds us in a phrase that I hold close. They said, even when the truth isn't hopeful, the telling of it is. Even when the truth isn't hopeful, the telling of it is. They said they used to do shows where they would tell the truth about all different parts of political topics. And they said, I almost made hankies a merch item because everybody just sobbed through the whole show while they were telling the truth about these different topics. They say, that's all we did was cry through the whole show. And since my diagnosis, they say, their terminal cancer diagnosis, I've been wondering, is that the most potent thing to do? Now, I know the necessity of telling the truth, but there is another thing I can do as a writer, they said, and I think we can do as people of faith. And that is to imagine the world that can be, and to start helping other people imagine the world that can be. Gibson, when they realized the storm was inevitable, they made it their medicine. Felt a love so consistent for themselves that metronomes tried to copy their heartbeat, opening and opening again and again until they could imagine that the pain they were feeling was the sensation of their spirit not breaking. In this, they are not denying what is true. We know denial is not the answer, at least not in the long term, though we might need to pick it up now and then. After all, we know now about Marie Curie denying the source of her wounds, denying that they are the same as the same source of her power. We have to hold it all, and then we choose. Will we gather at the river? Yes or no? How will we choose? This past week, we settled ourselves in with folks from the Unitarian Universalist Trauma Response Ministry team. And in many of the groups that I attended with some of you, we went through a series of questions that helped us to tell the truth about what is happening, but also choose our orientation for the present and the future. There was no denial of reality in those groups as we asked ourselves and each other, what is it that you need to talk about? What is sticking with you? What is difficult about it? As we listened to one another, we heard hard things. At moments in that telling of the truth, it was overwhelming feeling. And I remember Reverend Rosemary inviting us in multiple groups I was in to stay with it, to hold on if we wanted to and could, because we were going to get to a different place in our conversations and in our hearts, that we could move through that sometimes overwhelming feeling truth into a different place. So after we named what was hard, we named what helped. What helped in the moments of difficulty, what helped in the moments right after. We named what we thought might happen next and how we were planning to cope. These were honest conversations, not Pollyanna pie in the sky, not neat and tidy. And I'll tell you, in one of the groups I sat with, after we moved through this whole process on how we would cope and what might happen next, we were getting ready to close, and someone in the group made a request. Could we end our time together singing the hymn, Woe Ya Ya? the hymn we close with every Sunday. Could we sing together? We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know we will. We'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard at times. It will be muddy and rough, but we will get there. We sang together. We will get there. We will gather at the river. Now, this river, I want to say a little bit more about it. I've found myself turning back to a piece of writing that Michelle Alexander did back in 2018. Maybe you remember this. Michelle Alexander, the civil rights lawyer and advocate, the legal scholar, author of the book, The New Jim Crow. It was back in 2018, during Trump's first term as president, when she wrote this. She said, the river that we are a part of. The river is a new nation that is struggling to be born. A multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-faith, egalitarian democracy in which every life and every voice truly matters. We are not the resistance, she said. We are, in fact, the river. Donald Trump and those policies, that's the resistance. We are a rapidly swelling river. A river that is a new nation that is struggling to be born, a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-faith, egalitarian democracy in which every life and every voice truly matters. This river is powerful. This river is strong. This river is the long, continuous yearning and reaching, hoping and acting toward freedom and dignity that has been going on long before us and will go on long after us. Michelle Alexander reached back to the work of Vincent Harding. Vincent Harding, who was a historian and Mennonite pastor and friend and speechwriter to Martin Luther King Jr. To his book, There Is a River. In this book, he said, the river is not just the people, and it is never just a moment. The river is the hope. The river is the movement. The river is the transformative power that humans create and that creates them, and that makes us new people. You might say the river is the yes, the answer to the question, will we gather at the river? Yes, in hope, in faith, in action, grounded in love that we take over and over again, that makes us anew. What would it be to know ourselves as the river, as the flow, as part of a continuous source of hope and freedom and dignity, a river that flows through history and through each of us. This is who we are. We are the river. And here's the thing about the river, about being tenders of the river. My colleague, the Reverend Sean Neil Barron, tells us like this. The river is not just the water that flows, it's an ecosystem. A layered ecosystem of interconnected beings, full of species that depend on each other in ways that aren't always visible. The more diverse an ecosystem, the more resilient it becomes. The more streams feeding the river, the harder it is to dam. Each of us are a stream feeding that river. Each of us a tender of that river. And tending the river is not always a glamorous task. Sometimes tending the river is about very basic, very important things, and it needs to happen when the river is high and when the river is low. Clearing the debris, measuring the temperature, counting the fish, planting the trees along the edge. We are tenders. We are the river. We are tenders of hope and justice, tenders of faith, tenders of the word yes, tenders of holding both and. And we need to tend the river and our faith in times that are easy and times that are more challenging. When and how might we do the sometimes unglamorous work of spiritual practice and spiritual growth, that we might be able to hold all that is true and move toward our power and repair? How might you be a tender of the river that exists and flows through you and through all time? This is who we are. Be the river. Gather at the river. May it be so. May we make it so. Amen. Yes, gather at the river, friends. Gather for coffee and conversation downstairs in the social hall. It's so good to get to be together in this space. May your heart be filled. May you too find your way to yes, to power, to healing and restoration and repair. May you too be tenders of the river. May it be so. Amen.
Go in peace, friends. Beyond all things
What's up, JT?